So let's start with our feet wide, and let's just take some shoulder rolls. So just a few of each movement, and then let's place the hands on the shoulders and circle the elbows. So what I'm trying to do here is move my rib cage about a little bit. So this is just getting me warmed up. I tried to sort of do this class without having done any warm-up, but obviously I had to practice it and think about how I was going to, the order of events. So I am already quite warm, but should feel quite good to start with. So ideally you don't really need to be already warm, but this is a great thing to do at the end of your workout or at the beginning or at any time when you just want to sort of get everything stretched and mobilised. So then we're going to take a chest and back lift. So lifting the chest up, sticking the bottom out, finding your hands on your knees, elbows out to the side, fingertips in, unravel your spine all the way down. Everything I'm doing, I'm thinking about the body part that I'm moving. So I started off thinking about the shoulders, then I thought about the rib cage shifting backwards and forwards, and now I'm really thinking about the spine. I just want to mobilise that spine. So my focus is on every single vertebrae, moving evenly through this, through these shapes, if you like, thinking about that shape. So creating almost like imagine your spine as a ribbon, you're arching your back, it's really curved, the head finishes off the movement and then it comes up the other way, like a piece of seaweed almost. And then we're going to take the reverse of that, you're going to lift your chest and then draw a line down your centre with your chin. So I'm rounding my back in the opposite way. Again, bringing my hands onto my legs just to support me, and now I'm reversing the movement up, arching the back. So this time the head leads both times. Rounding the back, going forwards, all the while breathing and making sure really that you're in good alignment with whatever you're doing. So what I mean by that is as you come back, don't let those knees, as you bend your knees, don't let the knees roll in, keep the knees out over the toes. None of this has to be a very big movement. It can be as big or as little as you like and as you feel comfortable with, but make sure that you go right to the very edges, go right into the corners of the movement. That's really important. So let's reach up, trying to touch the ceiling. Just about 4 of these. My goal here is I'm thinking of lifting my rib cage off of my hips. I'm looking up and then I'm going to drop one arm down and take this into side bends. I call these flowing side bends. So now I'm thinking about the side seam of my torso and stretching that, stretching it out, getting it all moving. Now I'm going to go over to one side and just mirror me if you can, rolling all the way down, swapping the arms over, coming up the other side. Over to the side, bend the knees, swap the arms over, come up the other side. Again, your focus is on that side bend, rolling all the way up, making sure the knees are going over the toes. Let's try one more each side. So this might be a little bit different to your average static stretching routine. It's not meant to be static, it's meant to get the blood flow to the areas that we want it to be in. And that's why we're just moving all the way through, breathing, be as relaxed as possible. So let's take the arms up to the ceiling. So we've already done quite a few leg bends, but we're going to continue with a nice leg bend. My focus now is on these hips. I want to drop my hips down quite low, and just compress that joint at the front of my hips as I swing my arms. And as I get more comfortable with this movement, I'm going to allow my upper back to relax down, really relax the head in the centre. Again, make sure knees are going over the toes. My fingertips are just brushing the floor. That might be too much for you at the moment. You might just want to stay here. we're building up to coming down lower and lower into a nice deep squat. So now I'm just going to focus on that movement alone. So this hinge at the hips, keeping my back fairly upright, my pelvis is in neutral, knees are over the toes, straightening and bending the legs. All of this movement is getting the blood flow to the muscles, to the joints, to the tendons, getting everything lubricated. That's what we need. We need that for everyday life. So we've got that spare capacity. We're going to stay down in our nice deep squat. And I'm just bringing my hands forward as a bit of a counterbalance. And I'm just transferring my weight from side to side. This is very strong right in this hip socket. But that's good. To keep a joint healthy, you need to compress it and you need to take it through its biggest range of motion or movement, whatever you like. So all of these stretches will be doing exactly that. And you might not be anywhere near as low as me today. That's absolutely fine. But try and work towards it. You could always the option, hang on to something. Hanging on to this door handle here. I won't go too mad, but I'm allowing my weight to drop down a little bit more. I've got really rubbish Achilles tendons, so my heels, if I do that freely, if I go all the way down on my bottom, my heels come off the floor. That's fine. That's where I am. The other great thing about stretching in this way or mobilising in this way is understanding your own body and heightening your own awareness of your own body. So that's got those hips nice and lubricated, I think is the word I'm looking for. So let's go a little bit wider. I'm going to stay forwards. I'm going to drop down into that deep squat again. And I can see in the monitor that I'm nice and even. We're always looking for that good symmetry. Knees are going over the toes. I'm nicely in the middle. And I'm just going to lift my butt up, take my heels out a little bit and walk my hands forwards, let my head drop down and not take any pressure, any weight into those hands and just breathe. So I'm lengthening the spine out through the crown of the head and then in the opposite direction at my tailbone. And again, just move a little bit from side to side. So I try not to get stuck in any of my stretches. I try and move constantly. It's really important. Brilliant. From there, I'm going to bring my hands back and I'm going to straighten both legs. Just nod your head and shake your head. Check that you're not holding any tension. You won't be able to see me, but just try and follow the cues. So both legs are straight. Your hands might be touching the floor, they might not. Really doesn't matter. I'm going to take my upper body over to one leg. Just the upper body. I'm hanging on to that lower leg. I'm trying to get my head on that knee. This is probably the closest you're going to get from me in a static stretch. But I'm really making sure that I'm breathing. I'm going to bring my upper body relax in the middle, maybe soften the knees, ease that stretch at the backs of the legs, then straighten the legs and then swap to the other side. Notice for yourself, which is your tighter side. Always a tighter side, always a weaker side. Try and do a little bit more. Hold the stretch a little bit longer on that tighter side. Do some more strengthening work on your weaker side. Try and address your imbalances. Coming back to the middle. Now I'm softening the knees and I'm just going to roll up through the spine, unravelling all the way up. Great, we're taking our ballet plies, turning the legs all the way out in the hip socket. The knees are going over the toes. We're just bending the knees. Spine is staying upright. Obviously a very strong stretch in the groin. But most importantly is the alignment of your spine, the alignment of your knees going over your toes. That's really, really key. Couple more of those if you can. So the first ones, hopefully you're noticing with this, the more you're doing, so by the 4th, 5th, 6th repetition, everything started to just ease a little bit, hopefully. So let's stay down this time. Take those elbows on the inside of the knees and push them back. Now this is an old traditional stretch of mine I've been doing for many, many years. It never really gets any more comfortable. It's actually really quite uncomfortable as a stretch. It's a very strong stretch. So I'm using just below my elbow to push my knees back more, and then I'm transferring the weight from side to side. So it's really strong in the groin. Dropping those hips down. Then from there, I'm going to take my hands down to the floor. I did have my legs completely turned out. I've brought them in a little bit, but I'm going to go along the length of my yoga mat and take my toes to the corners a little bit. Keeping the weight on your hands is an option here to start with. So the hands are underneath the shoulders, and I'm now taking the hips from side to side. Knees are going over the toes. And breathing, fully straightening one leg, fully bending the other, trying to keep the whole of the foot flat. So you might find that that foot rolls in as you go to the other side. You might find yourself lifting the hips up and then dropping down. Try and work through those things. Most importantly is those knees going over the toes. If you're really parallel with this one, and again, try it, see how it feels, get to know your own body. This feels awful for me. It feels really restricted in my ankles and also in my hips, which is why it feels much more comfortable if I just turn those legs out, but right up in the hip socket, knees going over the toes. Now, if you want more of a challenge, this is quite easy for you, take those hands away. So you haven't got that support on the floor. You could maybe drop your hips down a little bit lower. Now I've turned that leg out completely. This is very much a martial arts type stretch. I'm pushing this knee back, but I'm actually using my muscles to do that. I feel like I'm going to end up in the side splits, which I can't actually do, so that wouldn't be good. So we're there. So I'm not super flexible. I'm an ex-dancer, but was never the most flexible of dancers. I've had to work at my flexibility. My biggest challenge at the moment is trying to keep my heels down in a deep squat. But I'm getting there, and I'm finding that it's making other movements that I want to do in everyday life better. And that's what this is about. It really isn't about a competition to see how low you can get, how far you can get into the splits or anything else. So let's turn this around to one side. So mirror me if you can. Let's go around, all the way around to this side. So the feet are pretty much where they were. Ideally, I want this front knee above the ankle, so the feet are really quite far apart. From here, and this was in the original stretch, is again one I've been doing for many, many years, rocking backwards and forwards, but with your weight supported on those hands again. So you bend the back knee, you bend the front leg. So many things going on here with the legs. And the hips, toes, ankles. Again, we've got that really good alignment all the way through. So let's stay forwards. The back leg is straight, if you can. That whole section can be done with the back knee down, by the way. Rocking backwards and forwards there. If you can't keep that knee off, that's absolutely fine. But if you can, keep the knee off. I'm going to turn the back leg out now. So I've made it a right angle with the rest of the mat, and that hip has opened up, and then I'm coming up into this position, which is a warrior position from yoga. I'm taking that arm up to the ceiling, and I'm going to take a little back bend. Again, this isn't overly comfortable for me, but this is my new challenge, latest challenge. Then I'm going to take that hand down on the inside of the other leg. You could come to here if this isn't available to you. And then take that arm up to the ceiling, trying to open up those shoulders. And then I'm going to reach that arm forwards, bring that back leg and the hip in to parallel. Maybe drop the back knee down to the floor. Sorry, no, not maybe. Let's go opposite hand to foot, and let's take a rotation here, up towards the ceiling. Back leg off if you can, dropping the hips down, And then if you can and or you want to open up, oh, I've got a nice click up my back then, open up a little bit more. Then come round to the front, both hands on the inside of that front foot, taking the and the back knee down, elbows down towards the floor. And again, this is tough. From here, so try not to be twisted. Try and get both elbows down evenly if you can. If your elbows are nowhere near the floor, just bend both arms equally. You're going to feel it in that outside thigh and hip, that back thigh and hip. From there, let's circle those hips around both directions. Getting quite hot now. Whew. What do we have down? Oh, one-legged pigeon. I'm going to pass on that one for this one. Let's turn around all the way to the other side. So, we've got the knee above the ankle. We've got the feet really wide, hips and shoulders are square to the side of the room, and we're rocking backwards and forwards. Bending one knee, bending the other. So stretching hamstrings when you've got that front leg straight. Hamstrings of the front leg. Stretching hip flexors of the back leg when you're forwards, when the front leg is bent. Those are the two things you're thinking about. That's your focus. Spine is square, hips are square and parallel. Where do we go from here? Not quite sure. I think we opened up that back leg. Yes, we did. And we came up into the yoga warrior pose. So this knee is really square on, exactly where it was before. Gosh, I'm really hot today. I've opened up that back hip, that back leg is nice and square, and then I'm taking the arm up to the ceiling and leaning back a little bit. Whew, trying to sink down as well. Then reaching forwards, hands down to the floor, opening up those shoulders, dropping the hips down. This is tough. I'm going to reach that arm forwards, getting that lovely stretch in my back. Turn that back foot in. Opposite hand to foot at the front, open up, look away from the screen, try and touch the ceiling, try and lift out of the floor, and then open up those shoulders a little bit more. And then have both hands in front, back knee down to the floor, both elbows down if you can. Feel a little bit more comfortable for me on this side. Slightly, and then I'm trying to mobilise through those hips. And then coming up, I hope you enjoyed. That was part 1 of Mandy's mobilising. Thank you very much.